I wouldn't recommend anybody to learn Neapolitan first because, as I mentioned, it's going to be hard for you if you just speak, let's say, English to learn Neapolitan because of the resources and because of all the other rules that you might not be aware of. I strongly recommend you start with Italian because that's what most Neapolitans do as well. I mean, I was raised in Italian.
Hello, hello, language lovers. Welcome back to LingoCast, the podcast of your language journey. My name is Eliseu, and you're starting here a new episode. How are you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited to be here once again at LingoCast to talk with another amazing guest that we're having today. I'm already giving spoilers, and we haven't even started yet. But yeah, awesome to be here again and to talk to you guys. First of all, like before we dive into this episode, I want to mention that I want to talk about our Patreon program. So if you really want to support this project, or if you really want to participate in the future episodes and give your suggestions, be in a group where we are and other patrons are, so we can talk and interact. We also meet. We do some calls with the members. So if you want to be a part of that, and if you also want to read our blog, we have a specific blog for patrons. We post stuff there for our patrons. So if you really want to get the most out of the experience of LingoCast, make sure you check the Patreon out. Or if you just want to support us, you make sure to check our Patreon program.
Yeah, even if you want to watch the full episode, you can have access to it in our Patreon platform. So yeah, we can go to today's interview, and we have today Raffaele. How are you doing, Rafa?
Hi, Eliseu. Hi, Sam. Nice to see you here. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here to talk about our favorite topic.
It's our pleasure. And yeah, so our first question, I think we want to get to know a little bit about you. Yeah. So who is Raffaele?
Well, I'm Italian. I'm from the city of Naples, in let's say in the south of Italy. Um, I'm soon to be 40 years old, and I've always loved languages. I've always loved traveling. I've always worked in the language business, but also in tourism. I'm a tour guide here in Naples, and yeah, so I get the chance to practice those languages almost on a daily basis with tourists in my city, and I try and do my best showing my city and doing that in multiple languages when I can.
That's
Awesome.
so cool. That's so cool. I have a friend from Naples actually. His name is also Raffaele, which is a coincidence.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll
We've
talk
been,
about that later. Maybe I know the guy.
yeah. Maybe you know him, right? How would you call someone who has the same name as you in Italian? That's a good question because like in Portuguese we have the word xará, which means
Mm,
someone who has like the same name as you, so we call them xará. Do you have a name for that in Italian?
I know that it's Xará in Portuguese, in Brazil in Portuguese, because of football and because of Ronaldo and Ronaldinho. So that's
Yes.
when I learned that word Xará. In Italian is omonimo. That's
Homónimo.
like
Ah, so you have the
Morning.
like specific name
same
for that.
name. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
literally, I think it's from Greek and it's same name.
Ah, nice, nice. Well, ours is more casual then. Ours is more like just like informal because it's informal speech as well. So if you say "shara," you wouldn't say that. I mean, like only if you have the liberty to do that in a book, for example. But it's definitely like informal, something that you don't see in formal
I
Portuguese.
see.
That's so interesting. So interesting to see those differences as well because I feel like Italian. I could be wrong because it's funny for a native speaker. It's always different, but from my perspective, I feel like Italian is much more formal than Portuguese. I feel like you guys respect the rules more than we do. I feel that
um,
happening. Like
I'm
I
not sure.
s-
Maybe a little bit, but it also depends on the situation. It depends on the city where you are. I would say there are several ways of speaking Italian. You can be
Mm,
super formal and use all the most difficult words, and use subjunctive and stuff like that. But you also just can just pick the way you speak on your everyday life So maybe using a lot more of the present tense or past tense, and you just try and be more simple in your language. That's what we do in our daily life.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Also depends on the person, right? On like the
Yeah.
not just the level of education, but also like the region, like you said, where the person lives and stuff.
Yeah. I'm not saying that because I mean that in some regions they don't speak as good Italian as in other regions, but what I mean is that those local languages, they have an influence on the everyday Italian that you speak. So you tend to use some structures from your local language into your Italian, and that it's not always correct. That's not always seen as the golden standard of Italian, but a lot of people do that.
Yeah, before we talk about Neapolitan, I wanted to ask you a question. How did you get interested in languages? Do you remember the moment, or what was the spark for you?
Oof, that's a big question. I like to think that it all started not necessarily with languages, but it started with finding out about the world, and it happened to me when I was 6. So we had the World Cup in Italy, and we had multiple events throughout the country, and of course there was also a fair in Naples, not far from the stadium. And in that fair, you had, all different nationalities of the world, maybe not just those who qualified for the World Cup. And so I remember going there with my family and, being totally fascinated with how many flags, how many languages, how many countries, how many different cultures I could find there. And I came back home with a little souvenir, and that was a little football, but it was electronic and with flags of the participating countries in the World Cup. And if you pressed a flag, you will hear the national hymn, the anthem. And so I think that is when I started realizing there's a world outside of Italy. And I also started listening to the sounds of those languages. But the first languages that really started to wanting to learn were, of course, English and Spanish because of passions. English because of music, of course. I have an older sister. She's 6 years older than me, and she started listening to rock music from the US or from the UK, and I wanted to understand the lyrics to those songs. So I started going through the booklets of the CDs, and that was my first contact with English, basically. And with Spanish, we go back to football again. Don't ask me why, but I was in love with Spanish football, and I was following Real Madrid at the time. So every week I would buy magazines to find out about the results of the Spanish La Liga, and I wanted to know and learn Spanish words. So I remember the day I found out that in my own room there was a Spanish dictionary, and so I started going through the pages of the dictionary, and I wanted to see how I could translate every single word from Italian to Spanish. So my first contact with Spanish was actually reading a vocabulary, reading a dictionary.
That really cool. That's really cool. For English, it was similar for me as well. A similar thing because many things have inspired me, but also I had a dictionary where I was like trying and learn vocabulary, and these kind of helped me on my beginner stage as well. Like it motivated me to keep learning as well. So like I had like this tool, right? Because back then didn't have a lot of access to internet and like didn't have a phone, so I just did that. And it's really interesting how you can learn languages in so many different ways, right? And how those little things can really motivate you and ignite the fire, right? Ignite this
Absolutely.
passion. I have a
Yeah.
question about Neapolitan for you. You are from Naples, and in Naples, there's a dialect that's spoken there. It's Neapolitan, right? Um, and I want to ask you, you are bilingual. You speak Italian and Neapolitan, Can you tell us how it is to be raised in Naples with two languages? How does it work? How is it?
I mean, we don't even say it like that because it's just the way we are raised. We do have two languages, and the official language is, of course, Italian, but Neapolitan is the language of your heart. I mean, we all, in Naples, we all get mad in Neapolitan. When we are very happy, we scream in Neapolitan. So I would say that Italian, in most cases, is the language of your mind more than the language of your art. That is possibly Neapolitan, or at least with me, it is like that. And basically, it depends on the family, but most families will try and raise you speaking Italian, so they will talk Italian to you, and they expect you to learn Italian as your first language. And it's also the same when you go to school. So school, of course, is just an Italian. That's the only official language. Neapolitan is not taught at school. It's not actually taught anywhere. You don't have books in Neapolitan unless you decide to buy them. The specific language, the specific books about the Neapolitan language and in Neapolitan language. But Neapolitan, you get it little by little. You get it from some phrases here and there that your parents or relatives say when they are just communicating, and you pick up a thing here, a thing there, and you start learning those words, and you also start to understand how the language works. But then you really start speaking Neapolitan when you go to higher school, like middle school, for example, when a lot of people will speak mostly Neapolitan, and you can't help but learning it and speaking it.
I was listening to an interview. I don't remember. I think it was Joliet, the Neapolitan rapper, and he was saying that in some neighborhoods in Naples, it's now very well seen to speak Italian. Have you ever been in this situation? Like,
of course,
oh, yeah?
of course. My neighborhood is not that far from Julia's neighborhood. Actually, we are from the same neighborhood. Now that I come to think about it, we are from the same neighborhood. And the thing is, yes, there are some situations where if you speak Italian, people will automatically see you as the non-cool guy, or the guy that doesn't know how to behave in I would say, in a street environment. It's like trying to go in some of the provinces of a big U.S. city and trying to speak like Shakespeare. People will think like you're completely a fish out of water. And in most cases in your life, you don't want to look like that or give the feeling to people that you are a fish out of water. So you have to speak the language that people around you speak. And so yes, it has happened to me in the past quite a lot.
That's interesting, right? Especially, I think, for us Brazilians, we are not raised with two languages, so I'm very curious about how it is.
I think in Europe it's much more common than some people think, and also, of course, in many regions of Africa. I mentioned Europe because in Europe you have those cases like, I don't know, Catalan and Spanish, which is pretty common. So it's it's levels, it's layers. You use a different language in a different situation.
I think since I don't speak Neapolitan, I really think that you have a lot of better questions to ask than me about this. But on the same token, as someone who doesn't speak it, I want to ask you something. Do you think Neapolitan is hard for someone who already speaks like Italian, or someone who learns Italian as a second language, or just learns Italian? Do you think Neapolitan is hard for that person, or if because of Italian it makes it easier, or it doesn't help at all? What do you think?
And there's a very good point before you answer, because I've seen many times that Neapolitan is in the same group as Italian. But honestly, for me, it's much easier to understand Lombardian, Friulian, or Venetian than to understand Neapolitan.
Yes, in a way, it is a little bit harder for even Italians to pick up Neapolitan. because of the sound, because of the phonetic. Unlike Italian, Neapolitan is not a phonetic language. That means that there are a lot of vowels that are not pronounced or are pronounced as a schwa sound, so a stop sound. But at the same time, those rules are pretty predictable. So it's, I would say, 10, 12 phonetic rules. And once you learn them and you start hearing the language, you start recognizing them. You just get used to those sounds. And once you understand those little things and how to turn an Italian word into a Neapolitan word, or how articles work and stuff like that, you've already done, I would say, 50% of the work. And the rest is just, listening and even speaking maybe. So I would say that as a language, it's not a difficult language, especially if you speak Italian already. So it would take you just a few months, possibly, for you to grasp the pronunciation and start understanding and speaking the language. But on the other side, it might be a difficult language because you don't have any resources. You won't find teach yourself a Neapolitan book or a nasty little
Easy
book about
Neapolitan.
Neapolitan. Easy Neapolitan is not there yet. But
Spoiler.
yeah. That means that you're pretty much left to yourself when it comes to having to learn this language. So if you're Italian, you can find a way. If you're an English-speaking person, that's a lot more difficult because it's hard to find a course in Neapolitan.
Very interesting. We mentioned easy languages, right? And I know Sam has a question for you about easy languages.
Yeah. So how does it all happen? Because how did you join Easy Languages? I wanted to know, because I'm a huge fan of this project. Because I watched Easy German a lot. I watched Easy French a lot. All when I was learning those languages, of course. Like right now, I don't watch them as much. But when I was learning German, I watched a lot of Easy German, a lot of Easy French. When I was learning French, I even watched Easy Spanish. And how did it all start for you? Like, how did you want to, when did you want to join this project? What made you make this decision?
It's people, it's connections, and I was exactly like you are, a fan of the network, and I would consume a lot of those 3 interviews from the network in different languages. But at the time, I actually worked for italki. I think we all know italki. For those who don't know, italki is the leading platform for online language classes. And I attended a conference. I think it was actually a gathering, the polyglot gathering in where was it? Bratislava. I was in Bratislava, and I met a girl, Katie Harris. She has a blog, A Joy of Languages, and we became friends very quickly. I also met another bunch of crazy and amazing people that are still friends of mine to this day. But after some time, I realized that she applied to be a host in the Easy Italian network. They were looking for somebody to host those street interviews, and she applied with their boyfriend Matteo, and so they took over the project. And after some time, while in one of our conversations talking about our personal life, business life, and so on, she mentioned that they were looking for somebody to take over a part of the project, which was the podcast. They wanted to launch the Easy Italian podcast, and they thought that would be a good fit. And I was just about to leave italki at the time, so I said, yeah, I think it's a great idea. So I started working with Katie first, and then with Katie and Matteo for Easy Italian, and I became part of the network. But generally speaking, if you want to be part of the network, just keep an eye on their YouTube channel or social networks. Every now and then, they open up the possibility for people to join the team or even open up new channels in case you speak a language that it's not represented in the network. They are always open to that.
That's
Awesome.
really interesting.
Motivated me too. Sorry,
Yeah,
Eliseu.
we are fan of the channel. Me and Sam, we talk often about. We send each other videos and we talk about the resources, and it's cool to know someone. Of course, I already knew you, but to know someone who is actually working there, because I've seen you before meeting you. Yeah, so this is really interesting.
Are you saying I'm famous?
Yeah, I would say so. People who learn Italian, I would say so.
Oh, I was recognized just once in my life in the streets of Naples, and I think I was walking in the streets of Naples with a friend of ours, Davide Gemello from
Ah,
Podcast
okay.
Italiano, and we were walking in Naples, and I do that almost every day, and nobody ever recognizes me. But I was walking with Davide on the main street of the city, and somebody stops us. Hey, you are Davide Gemello from Podcast Italiano. And he says, yeah, nice to meet you. Do you know the guy here as well? And he pointed at me and he said, let me think about it. Oh, yeah, you are from Is Italian. So they recognized me just because I was walking next to Davide.
Okay.
No, they recognized you. They recognized you from his Italian. He even said it. Come on. No, you're being too humble now.
So now I'm
It's,
not
it's
that famous.
it's because it's easier to see Davide because he's very tall, so it's hard not to see him. That's why probably.
By the
You're
way,
right.
about David, I have to say his Russian is really good. I didn't even know
So,
he spoke Russian so well. Like I had no idea when I watched the video from I forgot her name now, the name of the channel. You did the
Ellie
interview
from
too.
Russia, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I watched
exactly.
that with my girlfriend.
Yeah. So that was really cool. And you were there too, Eliseu, right? And your Russian is good, I already knew, but
No, Virina. Yeah, Virina. Yeah, but
yeah.
it was 6 months, more than 6 months ago. My Russian was not very good back then, but yeah, it's good to
Nah.
see the difference now. No.
No, I think your Russian was good, like already, honestly. And David is like great Russian, insane, like
yeah,
amazing.
it's one of his best languages. I think he studied in Russia. And yeah, he brought the language to a very high level.
Talking about Italian that you were mentioning, I'd like to know a little bit more about your new project because you have your solo project, your channel, TikTok. I've seen the videos, and yeah. So first, how was the idea to have your own channel, your own project? And the other question I have is, how is it to talk about language learning but to Italians? Because what we do here, we talk about language learning, but we have very international audience, and we usually use English. And how is it to talk to Italians? What's the difference?
Hmm. First of all, I first started my solo project, I would say 6 years ago, or even more than that. But as soon as I started it, I was basically called by some guys from Italki, and that's why I started working with them. They flew me to Shanghai, and I started working with them, and I automatically left my solo project aside, for that, basically to rust. Um, and yeah, it was just last year that I decided to pick it up again because I think that um, uh, it's always important to have something that you can call your own and that where you can totally be yourself and use your ideas. And yeah, that connects also to the second part of your question. There's a lot of people out there, of course, doing content for English speaking people. And maybe talking about or in multiple languages. But I found out that there is basically nobody doing that in Italian for Italian people. So there is no Italian polyglot that talks to Italian people. We all know plenty of Italian polyglots. We are the best. um, but they all talk to an international audience. So I saw the opportunity to do pretty much the same thing, but to Italians, and that's a little bit tricky. There's plenty of Italians who do not speak English, but at the same time, everybody teaches English. So entering a niche market, but where you already have a lot of people teaching English, teaching Spanish, and other languages as well. But try and talk to all of those people, telling them this is how you learn languages. It's a challenge of its own.
Awesome. I have a. There was something I forgot to ask you because we're talking about a lot of important themes, and of course we get how do you say, carried away in those conversations, and end up forgetting to ask you about something really important. Since you're talking about inclusion, right? About like speaking Italian so that Italians can understand the content about languages and polyglots. What do you think about the importance of like a foreigner learning Neapolitan, for example? Like, what do you think? How big is like that for you? Do you think that foreigners should learn Neapolitan? Do you think that it's gonna be useful for them, but not just useful, but it's something that you encourage?
Do you know any foreigner that speaks Neapolitan? That's actually, I think, not sure if I have ever met.
Um, I do know some foreigners that speak Neapolitan or try to learn Neapolitan, and actually, one of the most famous YouTube polyglots, and I'm talking about Xiaoma Arya. He actually traveled to Naples a few months ago, and he recorded the whole thing. And he does not speak Italian, as far as I know, but he tried to learn Neapolitan in as little time as he could. And he traveled to Naples. He has a Neapolitan friend, and he went around the city just speaking Neapolitan. And he met a guy from Wales who also speaks Neapolitan. So that's crazy. And for me as a Neapolitan, that's amazing to think that somebody wants to learn my language. To answer your question more specifically, I wouldn't recommend anybody to learn Neapolitan first. Because as I mentioned, it's going to be hard for you if you just speak, let's say, English to learn Neapolitan because of the resources and because of all the other rules that you might not be aware of. I strongly recommend you start with Italian because that's what most Neapolitans do as well. I mean, I was raised in Italian, and I have a little daughter. She's almost 5, and we are raising her in Italian. But we also speak Neapolitan at home, so she already knows how to turn Italian into Neapolitan, sort of. So this is something that you pick up naturally, and I recommend everyone trying to do the same. So learn Italian first, and then if you want to add a layer to that, learn Neapolitan because it's going to be easier, and it's also going to open up a lot of I wouldn't say opportunities, but a lot of closer situations. I mean, if you go around Naples and you speak Italian, fine, everybody will be happy with that. But if you speak Neapolitan, their eyes will get as big as their face, and they will immediately treat you even better than usual.
And Neapolitan people are everywhere, right? In Warsaw, there are Neapolitan people, Neapolitan restaurants, bars. Yeah, so it's
Absolutely, that's one thing not to forget. We are everywhere. It's historical reasons, but let's not get into that. But you can find a Neapolitan pizzeria in every corner of the world, and you will always have a chance to find an Italian. And if he's an Italian abroad, there's, I would say, 50% chance that he's from Naples.
I have a fun story about my friend who is homónimo, right? That was the
Yeah,
name?
homónimo.
Yeah, homónimo.
Shara.
Shara. Yeah. Your Shara, Raffaele. There's a fun story. I have another friend from America. We all like know each other. We're in this group. So like we on WhatsApp, so we know each other. Like and there's this American friend. His name is Tom. Hey Tom, if you're listening to this. And he went to Italy. So he went to Naples and he met with the other Raffaele. And he told the story that when he got there, Raffaele took him to meet the family, like his family, and his grandma was there. So his grandma gave like a huge feast. There was a lot of food, so like the hospitality was like great. And my friend Tom said he ate like a lot, and she kept saying, "Oh, eat more, this," and like recommending stuff for him to eat. And there was a whole feast, and like I just wanted to share this cool fact about the hospitality in Naples. And if you can talk more about that, that would be great. And we also have a question from our patron Linda. She asked also, what's your favorite Italian word and why? So if you can talk about a little about the hospitality in Naples and also your favorite Italian word and why.
All right. Hospitality in Naples. Well, what you described is something that, as a kid, I saw happening every week when I went to visit my grandfather or grandmother. This is what we are, and in most cases, when you add a new person to the group, we just become a larger family. And so I'm not surprised by what you just described. And I would say possibly today with more tourism in Naples, it's a lot more common to have foreigners in the city. But once it was different. Once, if you had a friend from abroad and you would take him home, he would be treated like he's your brother. And your tale totally confirms that. And talking about grandmothers and Neapolitan, I was thinking about it the other day. My grandfather did not speak Italian. I mean, he did not go to school, so he did not speak Italian. He spent basically all of his life just speaking Neapolitan. Today, that is not possible anymore for obvious reasons. Everybody goes to school. But this tells you that in that situation, your friend Tom, if he wanted to speak to Raffaele's grandmother, he would only have to use Neapolitan. Otherwise, even with Italian, she would have a hard time understanding.
No, definitely,
And
definitely.
and
Yeah,
when
that's
it comes to
actually.
the
Yeah, sorry, I
go ahead.
interrupt you.
No,
You
go
can say.
ahead. I'll answer. Maybe I'll answer the other question later.
Yeah, so if you say the Italian word, can you say also your favorite Neapolitan word?
Oof, you should have told me beforehand. I can't
It
think
was
of
not
an
planned. Yeah.
Italian that was not planned. I had no idea of an Italian favorite word or even Neapolitan.
The one you use the
Favorite.
most, maybe, like the
We
one
don't
is
want
most.
to use those words.
Better not to learn. Yeah.
Those are not suitable for.
And we need to monetize the
for
channel,
work.
so let's keep it like.
um, Let me think about it for a second. The favorite Italian word. Uh, I will have to pass that for now. Maybe it will come
Okay.
to my mind in a minute. Um, Neapolitan one, I would say burdel, which is a very interesting one. I think it comes from French, but in Neapolitan, it means more of a confusion. And we have multiple words to say that, like it's chaos. I think in French you do say that, c'est le bordel. It also, of course, has a specific meaning. It's a brothel technically, but it means a confusion. Um, but we also use another word to say pretty much the same thing, and it is amoina. Amoina. Which is possibly even more interesting because it comes from Catalan. And it seems that it's supposed to meant to bother somebody, but in Neapolitan it just means to a lot of noise, confusion, chaos. So we can either say burdel, but it's written with an O, but you pronounce it with a U, burdel, exactly like in Catalan, and we say amuina to pretty much say the same thing. So you can say either of these two words.
I can say one Italian word that you taught me that I didn't know, which is pezzotto.
Well, that's I think that's a Neapolitan word that's been Italianized, if I can say it
Okay.
like that. And yeah,
How is it in Neapolitan? Pezzotto.
yeah, pezzotto. Yeah, because
Pezzotto. Oh.
we
What is a pezzotto, guys? I'm lost here. Like the audience, I think, probably listening to this.
pezzotto. To say it broadly, it's a mixture of different pieces put together to make things work in a way. But today it is basically used to say for something that is fake or something that is non-original, a copy, stuff like that.
Yeah, in Brazilian Portuguese it will be gambiarra, but I think in northern Italy they say pezzotto only for the cable TV, right?
I wouldn't really
I
going into
think.
that.
No, yeah, we
But
can.
yeah, as I said, it's now used to say it's an adjective. So if you're wearing a Prada shirt, but you only paid €5 for that, it's a pezzotto, a pezzottata. It's fake. And the same thing with football games on TV. If you don't want to pay the subscriptions that are very expensive, you can buy lists on Chinese websites. Why are we talking about this?
want to
And we say
monetize the channel, remember?
pezzotto. And we say pezzotto because it's basically a fake subscription.
Wow, yeah. So in Brazil, it would be gambiarra or gato.
Gato,
Right?
yeah.
Gato.
Oh my
Gato,
God.
like the
You say
cat.
Gato is so popular here.
like the cat.
We say
Yeah.
gato a lot.
In Rio, they do a lot, right?
Bro, like
Not
here is
only
like
for
part of the
kids, but they do.
culture. Part of the culture, bro. Gato is cultural.
Yeah. So before we go to our traditional questions, Sam, is there anything that you want to ask?
Yeah, absolutely. I think about I'm always fascinated about how Italy, Italy and Brazil are similar. Like we are very, very similar. I think like we have in our culture a lot of similarities. I think we're both rich in food. Like I think also Brazil has a lot of traditional dishes, and I think Italy is more popular around the world. Like definitely, but I think we both have very rich cuisine. Also, like football, like I have to talk about this. I think we are very similar in like our passion for this sport.
Religion, right? Football
It's
is
a religion, right? I think like also like especially in places like Naples, because you have a strong team, a strong club. There's a traditional club. So how okay how was it for you growing up in that environment? Like I want to know like how did football impact your life, and how do you feel that that football impacts the life of Italians or Neapolitans?